Hello scientists, and welcome back to Room 9, our region's largest classroom. My name is Mrs. Stobbs and I teach kindergarten in the Maplewood-Richmond Heights School District right here in St. Louis. And today I'm going to be teaching a science lesson to kindergartners and preschoolers, but of course learners of all ages are welcome to join us. We're going to have a lot of fun today. So let's get started. Yay! All right, so my friends, last week we were talking about living and non-living things. Do you remember? So we said that living things were things that needed food, water, and air to survive. They can move on their own, and they grow and change. They get bigger, or they become maybe a baby, and then they become an adult. So we were looking at pictures of things that were living and non-living, and we sorted them on this chart. Do you remember? So we said that animals and plants were living things, and we even said that people are living things. There's a little baby, and that baby will grow up to be a kid, and then the kid will grow up to be a teenager, and then the teenager will become an adult. Okay, so a baby or a person is a living thing. And then we said some of the things that are not living are things like maybe our toys, rocks. We said that rocks were not living things. We said that dirt was not a living thing. And they are things that don't move on their own, they don't grow and change, and they don't need food, water, and air to survive. But remember, we had a question about one of our pictures. We had a question about seeds. We were wondering if seeds were living things because we said we can keep seeds in a bag and they might not change. We can put them on a table and they might not change. But whenever we put them in dirt, what happens? They grow into something. They grow into something different. So we decided to do a test to see what we thought, to get some more information to see if we thought that seeds were living things. So we kept some seeds just in the bag that they came in. So I have radish seeds, I have lima bean seeds, and I have sunflower seeds. And they all still look the same. They don't really look any different than they did last week. So they didn't grow or change. But then remember, I planted a sunflower seed in our last video in dirt. And then I said I would also take a lima bean seed and plant that, and some radish seeds and plant those. And then we would come back today and see if things changed. So let me show you what happened. Here is the sunflower seed that I planted, or the seeds that I planted. Whoa, look at that. Do they look different? They do. They don't look like the seeds anymore. And actually, I don't know if you can get a good look at this one right here. This one still has the seed kind of attached. Whenever it's growing out, the seed still stays attached to the leaf until finally it gets so big that it pops right off. The seed covering, I guess I should say. And then also I want to show you, this one's really cool because I planted some of the seeds in the middle of the dirt, but I also planted a few seeds on the edge of the glass so we could see what happened. And look at what is growing under the dirt. Do you know what that's called? Those are called the plant's roots. And as the plant seedling, the little green part, shot up, the seeds went down. And the roots went down. Do you know what the job is of a plant's roots? The job of the roots is to take water and nutrients and bring it up to the plant. And nutrients are kind of like vitamins. Maybe you take a vitamin in the morning that helps you grow big and strong. Well, the nutrients in the dirt help the plants grow big and strong. So those roots suck up the water and the nutrients and bring it up to the plant. So isn't that so cool? Now let me show you. Here are the radish seeds. Look at how much they've grown. And I planted a whole bunch of radish seeds because they're kind of tiny. So a whole bunch dropped in there. And it's harder to see the roots on these guys. Oh, there you can. You can see it on that one. I don't know if you can see it in the video. Right there, there are some roots. And then here is the lima bean seed. And look at that. Isn't that cool? And oh, you can really see that in the glass too. Look at that with the roots coming off of the lima bean. I planted another one close by. And then this one's in the middle and it's popping up. Isn't that so cool? Well, you know what else I did? I took pictures of these seeds in these glass jars over the past week. So about once a day, sometimes even twice a day, I took pictures of these glass jars to see how they looked different every day, so we could see how they grew and changed. And I put them all together in a little video. So I want you to check that out right now. That was pretty cool, wasn't it? I thought that was really neat to show how it started off with nothing. We could just see the dirt, and then pretty soon the seedlings started to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow, and then we could see how big they got, and now they look like this. Now, I did another cool thing too. I took one lima bean, and I took some radish seeds, and I put them in a bag, a little zipper bag, with a wet paper towel, and I wanted to see what happened. So I'm going to show you that video too. So it started off with just one seed and then a few radish seeds on a wet paper towel, no soil, but I put it in a sunny space. So I want you to watch what happened to those seeds too. Wasn't that awesome? They really grew and changed. And I have it here, and it's even been a few more days. And look at those seeds, especially the lima bean seed. I think the lima bean seed is really cool to see because that root is really thick that's coming off, and now some smaller roots are starting to grow too. And those radishes are really growing tall. I think that's really cool. Let me see if I can get it. There we go. Right there. Oh my goodness! So my friends, after that experiment, after that test, what do you think? Do you think seeds are living things now? I think they are. They definitely are. Now, whenever seeds aren't planted, whenever they're just dry, sitting in a bag or on a counter, we call that dormant. It just means that they're kind of asleep and they're waiting to get the things that they need to live or to wake up. They're waiting for maybe soil or water, or they already have air, but probably the soil and the water. They're waiting for food and water and a safe place to grow. And then they wake up and they start to grow and they get bigger and bigger and bigger. So you know what? I think that we can put this for sure up here on the living things section of our chart. Now, I also want to show you another seed. I found these out in my backyard. Do you know what that type of seed is? Can get a better look. That's an acorn. And did you know an acorn is a seed? A tiny, teeny little acorn, whenever it's planted and you give it lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of time, it grows to be a gigantic oak tree. Isn't that amazing? So seeds come in all different sizes and shapes, and even a small seed can turn into something huge. And you know what? That makes me think, because I'm noticing that plants come in lots of different sizes and shapes. We have tiny little flowers like dandelions. Dandelions are pretty fun to play with. But then we also have big trees. Big trees. So I'm wondering, if they are so different, if they look so different from each other, is there anything that's the same about these plants? Why do we call both a tiny little dandelion flower and a big tree, why do we call them plants? Because they don't really look too much alike. So you know what we could do to find that out? It's what scientists do. They read to get information. So let's read this book. It's called Plants Are Alive, and it's by Molly Aloian. And Crabtree Publishing Company gave me permission to read this book to you. So let's read about Plants Are Alive. And because this is an informational book, it has a table of contents that will show us where to find all the information that we need. Living things. Oh, there's a header. That sometimes is that's in an informational book as well. There are hundreds of thousands of different kinds of plants on Earth. All plants are alive. Plants are living things. Wow, hundreds of thousands of different kinds of plants. Like all living things, plants need food to grow and stay alive. They make their own food from air, sunlight, water, and nutrients. Kind of like what we were talking about with the roots. Plant parts. And here's a diagram. And this is in an informational book too, where it's a picture and it has labels to show us the different parts of something. So we're looking at a different part of a plant. So it says that plants have leaves, they have a stem, they have roots. All plants have roots, stems, and leaves. Hey, we were wondering what all plants have in common. That's one thing. They all have leaves, a stem, and roots. Some plants also have flowers. So not all plants have flowers, but some do. A flower is the part of a plant that makes seeds. Some plants make many seeds, and other plants make just one seed. And you can see in there, that's where the seed is going to be made. The roots, and we talked about that with our cool jar. A plant's roots grow under the ground and help hold the plant in the soil. Roots take in water and nutrients from the soil. The roots also store food for the plant. And that's a great picture of roots too, kind of like what we got to see in our jar. The stem. A plant's stem helps hold the plant upright. The stem holds the leaves upright too. The stem carries water and nutrients from the roots to the leaves and the flower. The leaves. Isn't that a cool picture of leaves right there? A plant's leaves take in sunlight. The plant uses sunlight to make food. Some plants have big leaves. Other plants have small leaves. Have you noticed that? Yeah. Flowers. Many plants have flowers. Flowers are the parts of the plant that make seeds. Petals are the colorful leaves of a flower. And I love to look at beautiful petals on flowers. What type of flowers do you like to look at? My favorite are tulips. And I think there's actually a picture of tulips in here. This is my favorite type of flower right here. A plant's life cycle. A plant's life cycle. The flower on a fully grown plant can make seeds. New plants grow from seeds. The seeds of some plants drop down onto the soil below. The other seeds are blown off of flowers and carried by the wind to soil in other places. So a sunflower might just plop, drop its seeds down, and then new plants can grow the next year. But there are other plants like this milkweed plant that the seeds are kind of fluffy and they can get carried by the wind. Or maybe you've played with a dandelion before. Here's a yellow dandelion, but after a while it turns white, and maybe you go and blow the dandelion seeds everywhere, and then that helps the seeds carry so new plants can grow. Sprout to seedling. When a seed starts to grow in the soil, it sprouts. First, the seed coat covering the seed breaks open. Then a tiny root grows down into the soil. And that's kind of like what it looked like on our video that I showed you of the seeds that I planted. So did you see that? And then next, a shoot grows upward toward the sunlight. It grows into a young plant called a seedling. And we saw that right here with our plants. Our plants still have that seed covering hanging on to the leaf, and it's going to fall off pretty soon. Making seeds. As a seedling grows, it forms leaf and flower buds. A flower bud is a flower that has not yet opened. So here's a flower bud, and then pretty soon it's going to go boop and open up into that beautiful sunflower. The flower will open when the plant is ready to make seeds. Most plants need a powder called pollen from other flowers to make seeds, and you've probably heard of pollen before. Sometimes it might make you sneeze, but flowers need that pollen to help make the seeds. Friendly helpers. Did you know that flowers need some help to grow? Bees and other insects carry pollen from flower to flower. Then the plant can make its own seed. The plant seeds will become new plants and a new life cycle begins. And you can see that these sunflowers in the back, they're alive and they're healthy, but this one is starting to die, and then it will drop all of its seeds, and then new plants can grow. The end, and there's our index with words to know and where we can find those words. Pretty cool. So my friends, this book told us that plants are all living things, so they all need water, air, and food to survive. But they also all have some of the same parts. They all have roots, they all have a stem, and they all have leaves. And some plants have other parts too, like fruit, or like flower, or maybe even fruit too. All right, so let's act out those parts of the plant. Do you think you can do that with me? So you'll need to stand up, and you might not be able to see all of my plant. I move my chair out of the way. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to stick your feet down into the ground, kind of wiggle your toes around, and those are going to be your roots. Your roots, so get them down in the ground. And you can pretend like you're sucking up some water and nutrients. Can you suck it up? Good. And the roots also help us stay nice and steady so we don't tip over. Okay, then this part of your body, your legs and your body, that's your stem. And remember, the stem helps keep the plant upright and also keep it from falling over. It keeps it from falling over too. So the stem and the roots help keep the plant steady. And the stem also takes that water and nutrients up to the leaves. Can you stick your hands out like that? Now you're a plant. You have your roots wiggling in the ground. And then you have your stem nice and straight and your leaves. And your leaves lean toward the sun to try to get all of that sunlight to make food. And then sometimes you even have a flower. Awesome, friends. Great job. Okay, so now that we acted it out, I want to have you act like scientists again, become scientists, and we are going to label a picture of a plant. So back here, I'm going to move our chart of living and non-living things. I'm just going to put it over here for now. And I have two pictures of plants. I have a flower, and I also have a picture of an apple tree. Now, I tried to draw them with a lot of detail like a scientist, because remember, scientists draw very detailed drawings. And we are going to see if we remember all of the different parts of the plant. Do you remember? We just acted them out. So let's start with our flower, and I drew a sunflower. Let's start at the top. What is the top of the plant called? What's that really pretty part called? It's called a flower. So I'm going to stick flower, our label, up there on our chart. So now it is labeled flower. But what's in the middle of the flower? Do you remember? These are, on sunflowers, they're really yummy for us to eat after you roast them. The seeds. Maybe if you go to a baseball game, you eat some sunflower seeds. Yummy. So the seeds. Okay, what's this part called right here? That is the stem. The stem, and the stem keeps the plant up nice and straight. So I'm going to put that right here. What about these little green things that are coming off of the stem? Remember, they go like this and they get the sunlight to help make the plant's food. They're called the leaves. And because I'm just pointing to one leaf in this picture, right here, it's just pointing to one, I'm just going to say leaf, leaf. Okay, what about down below, under the ground? What is that part called? They are called the roots. And the roots' job, remember, is to suck up the water and the nutrients from the soil and to make the plant nice and healthy, to help it grow. Okay, roots. So we labeled our flower, but now we have an apple tree. And there are some parts that are the same on the apple tree, but there are some parts that are a little bit different. So let's start at the top again. What are all of the green things called that catch the sunlight to help make the food? They're the leaves. And this time I wrote leaves instead of leaf because it's pointing to a whole bunch of them. So leaves. Now our apple tree has two different parts. It has these little pink things and also the apples. The pink part, those are called the flower of the tree. Did you know that apples grow on trees, and before the apples grow, they're actually flowers? And then pollinators come and they spread the pollen around, and then those flowers turn into apples. If you want to see some cool pictures, ask your grown-up to help you look online for some pictures of flowers, apple flowers, turning into apples. It's pretty cool. All right, so the flower. So I'm going to put that right here because it's pointing to a pink flower. And sometimes the flowers on an apple tree are pink, sometimes they're kind of white. Now we also have the apple. Now what is that called on a tree? Because here it's an apple, but you could also have a peach tree or a walnut tree. It's called the fruit. The fruit. So the flower turns into the fruit, and then the fruit actually has the seeds inside. Sometimes the seeds are just in the flower, but sometimes the seeds are in the fruit. So I'm going to put that right over there, fruit. Okay, what about the big part of the tree? Is it called a stem whenever we're looking at a tree? No, it's not. It's called the trunk. We call it a tree trunk. So whenever it's a tree, we call it a trunk, but whenever it's a flower, we call it the stem. So I'm going to put the trunk right there. And then again, the tree has really big things at the bottom, underground, roots. And tree roots are huge, huge. They go for a really long time under the dirt. And they're strong too. Sometimes they can crack sidewalks, or sometimes they can even crack maybe even part of the basement of your house. So tree roots are big and they're strong, just like a tree, because trees are big and strong too. Oh, so cool. All right, my friends. Well, you know what? Now that we've learned a little bit more about plants, we know how they grow. We know that they start as a seed, and then if you put them in dirt, they slowly start to grow. The roots go down and the seedling goes up, and it gets bigger and bigger. We also learned that all plants have a stem, roots, and leaves, and some plants even have other things, maybe fruit or a flower. And now that we know all that cool stuff, I want you to go out in your backyard, and I want you to look at the plants that you have in your backyard or your front yard. Take a grown-up with you, and I want you to look and see if you can find roots. I want you to see if you can find the stem. Maybe you can find leaves. Maybe you can find a flower or even a fruit. Okay? And just like a scientist, take a notebook outside and draw what you see. I'm going to do it too, so I want you to check out what's in my backyard, and then you can do it on your own. Okay? So it's going to be a great time. Act like a scientist and observe those plants. All right, so we're out in my backyard and we're going to look at some of the plants that I have. So the first plant that I have is a basil plant. And as you look, I want you to notice the parts of the plant that we talked about. I see a stem and I see leaves, and these leaves smell really good. If you could smell them, ooh, you'd love it. And then I can also, if I look really closely in the dirt, I can see some roots. some roots right there. But roots, again, they're hard to see because they're under the dirt. And so if you go on a plant hunt today, don't go looking for the roots. Don't dig in the dirt to try to get the roots, because if you do that, you could hurt your plant. Sometimes you might be able to see roots, but a lot of times you can't. So just know that they're there. All right, the next plant that we have is a tomato plant. And I have just a small tomatoes we're growing. And if you look, you can see the stem way back in here. There's the stem. It's hard to see though because there are so many leaves. Look at all of those leaves. And also because this is a tomato plant, there are tomatoes. There are tomatoes. And just like the apple tree that we talked about up in our classroom, the tomatoes, they actually start as a flower. So if you look up here, you can see the yellow tomato flowers. The yellow tomato flowers, and those will get pollinated by pollinators, and then after they're pollinated, they'll turn into teeny tiny little tomatoes, and those tomatoes will get bigger and bigger until they look more like this. Then they start to turn from green to yellow to orange, and then finally red, and then we can eat them. All right, we have one more plant, and it is our black walnut tree. Look at the black walnut tree. It's big. There's a big trunk, not a stem, but a trunk. There are branches, some leaves, but some of the leaves have fallen off because it is now autumn. And then we also have more fruits. Those are the black walnuts, and squirrels love to eat those nuts. So my friends, I have already drawn these plants in my journal. So I have my basil plant with the stem and the leaves, and I put a B for basil. Here's my tomato plant, and I labeled the flowers, the tomatoes, and the leaves. And here is our tree with the walnuts. So you can now do that. Go outside, look for some plants, and record what you see like a scientist.
Teaching in Room 9 is made possible with support of Bank of America, Dana Brown Charitable Trust, Emerson, and viewers like you.